What's up? In this video I'll be showing you I can easily edit your studio photos when it comes to Photoshop, and in this tutorial you're going to be learning how you can easily process your raw images, how to do skin retouching, color grading, and how to correct the backdrops to get the best and seamless backdrop or background for your studio images. So without further ado, let's get started. So you can see the image that we're going to be editing in this tutorial. So just come and close this, and to open up a raw image in Photoshop, you can either drag and drop the image to Photoshop, or simply right click and come to open with and come to the Photoshop version that you want to use to edit your image or to edit your photo. So as soon as you open up a raw image in Photoshop, it is going to automatically open up the camera raw filter. So in the camera raw filter, we want first of all correct the lighting and contrast issues regarding this very image. So for this case, I'll just come and take the highlights down to recover information in the skirt, or in the shirt rather, and also take the whites down slightly. And I'll just come and open up the shadows to open up the shadows. So I won't take it all the way up, I'll just slightly open up the shadows and add some contrast to the image. And I'll just come and take the blacks down and slightly open up the exposure a little bit. So you can see the before and after, before, after. The difference is not too much, but this is just enough. So after doing that, you can as well open up the shadows even more. And after you have done that, I'm just going to make sure I change the settings to a 16-bit image. So just click there and change the bit depth to 16 bits, and sharpen 4 is checked, and screen is also checked, and amount is set to standard. I'll just come and click OK. Then after doing that, I'll just come and hit on open to open the image in Photoshop first to do the next adjustments like the color grading and skin retouching. So after doing that, we are right now in Photoshop. So just going to come and get the crop tool, and for this I'll just choose the ratio of 45 or 8:10, and I'll just try to straighten the image even more. So I'll just left click and just hold down and try to straighten up the image just like that. And you can as well expand it even more. So just take it higher slightly and move the image towards the right hand side. And after doing that, I'll just come and deactivate content tower and just leave it to the background default. So just come and press enter or return, and you can see it is going to leave these corners or these edges. So I'll just come and get the spot healing brush tool and simply paint over these black edges, and it's going to help me fill up these black edges on the side. So I'm just going to do that for the edges just like that, and I'll just come even below here. We have those black edges, so I'll just come and paint over the black edges or those lines down there. So I'm just going to paint even more and try to remove all these distractions in the background or in the backdrop. So this is basically one of the first steps you have to do. And after you have done that, the next thing is going to be working on the skin or doing the skin retouching. And for skin retouching, you're basically going to be using a technique known as frequency separation. And remember, frequency separation divides the image into the colors and the textures. So just going to come to this background layer and simply duplicate it by pressing Ctrl J. For Windows T, for Mac it is Command J. Then I'm just going to double click and name that to color, and I'll double click to rename this to textures. So I'm just going to name that to texture just like that. And after doing that, just come and select the color layer and hide the texture layer. So we're going to come right here to where you see filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur, and click on an area on the skin. Take the radius all the way down to the minimum, which is 0.1, and click on an area that has more textures on the skin. So you can zoom in by using this arrow or this icon for a zoom in option. So start taking up the radius and stop at the point where by the details, all the textures in your image are just starting to disappear. So for my case, at about 3, that is when I'm just starting to close out on the details or the textures in the skin. So depending on the amount of details or textures in the skin, you have to stop at the point whereby you are just starting to close out on the details within the skin or the textures in the skin. Click OK select the texture layer now, activate it, then come to image and come to apply image, and just come and select the color layer under the layer option. The channel is RGB, the blending has to be add, the scale is 2 and offset is 0. Make sure you turn on the invert option and you see the textures on this gray layer. So if at all you're dealing with an 8-bit image, if at all you have 8, these are going to change slightly. So make sure subtract is selected under the blend mode. The scale has to be 2 and offset 128, and make sure the invert option is not turned on, and you'll have the same results. So for my case, I'll just change this to add and simply invert and click OK. Since this is a 16-bit image, change the blend mode from normal and change it to linear light. And after doing that, select both layers and put them in a group by selecting them and pressing Ctrl G on the keyboard. So open up the group and select the color layer and hide the texture layer. So just going to come to the brushes, right click and get the mixer brush tool. And if at all you can't locate the mixer brush tool under the brushes, you can always locate the mixer brush tool below there. So make sure clean brush is selected, and the option that says clean the brush after each and every stroke has been selected. With the weight of 9%, load 75, mix at 90, flat 100%. Make sure sample all layers is not turned on. And for this, we just want to blend the transitions between the skin tone or a skin color. So you can slightly zoom in for this kind of full body images so that you can blend better. And to increase or decrease on the size of the mixer brush tool, you can use the open and close brackets on the keyboard. So I'll just come and by using a small brush, I'm just going to start blending. So simply mix the colors that are looking alike so that you can keep and maintain the original shape of the model's skin or the face. So I'm just going to mix the highlights alone, midtones alone, and the shadows alone. Reduce on the size to work on a small area. And as you can notice that we are just blending the transitions between the skin tones or the model's skin color to create an even transition or a smooth transition between the skin tones. So just come and blend just like that. So you can see I'm using a relatively small brush to blend the transitions, and where the transitions are blending from one color to another or moving from one given color to another, I am using a small brush to blend the borders or the boundaries of that given area. So I'm just going to come and blend just like that. I'm just going to come the lower part of the body and slightly zoom out and increase on the size of the brush and simply left click and blend. So you basically left click, hold down and blend a given color, and after blending that color to mix on a given color or to blend on a new color, you release the left click button and blend once again on a brand new color. So I'm just going to do that for the rest of our image. So next we're going to be, after skin retouching, we are going to go straight into the skin tones or evening out of the skin tones and correcting the lighting issues regarding this very image. So you can now come and activate the texture layer, and you can say before and after for the leg area. Command minus, you can see the overall before and after for just working on the whole image. So you can come to the texture layer and now select it and come and get the clone stamp tool, or you can press S on the keyboard to select the clone stamp tool. Make sure the hardness is set to 0 and mode is normal. Opacity and the flat 100%, aligned is checked, and make sure the sample is set to current layer. Zoom into the image this time around by using Ctrl plus on the keyboard, and remove, for example, this car. Hold down the option key on the keyboard and make sure the size of the clone stamp tool is slightly bigger than the pimple or the blemish that you want to remove. So hold down the option key on the keyboard or the alternate key on the keyboard and left click on a clean area while still holding down the alternate or option button, and release the option key on the keyboard and also release the left click button and left click once again to replace the pimple or the blemish with clean skin. So basically that is how you can use your magical clone stamp tool to clean up or remove the skin imperfections or pimples. So you have to keep on doing that for the rest of the image by copying and pasting different areas You don't have to paste the same color that you copied from a previous area, because different areas have or contain different levels of colors. So I'm just going to, I hope you can see what we have right now. So command minus to zoom out to see what we have been able to achieve. So after I have worked on the skin, the next thing is going to be working on the colors. So in order to work on the colors, we are first of all going to create a stamp visible layer. A stamp visible layer is basically a screenshot or a merged layer for everything that we have below here. So just create that stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, that is for Mac. Then for Windows is Shift Alternate Control E to create a stamp visible layer, as you can see. And as soon as we do this, we just want first of all brighten up the legs. So I'm just going to come and get the quick selection tool and make sure add to selection is activated. Then sample all layers is not checked and enhance is not, or enhance edge is not activated. So I'm just going to zoom in and simply left click to make a selection on the legs, and it's going to be doing a pretty great job for us. So just come to adjustments and come to brightness and contrast, and first of all take out contrast from this area because it looks like it had more contrast than the rest of the skin. And just come to brightness and slightly brighten up her legs. But as you're doing this, always make sure you come to the properties and feather that to look better or seamless. So still we have done this, but this step was only brightening up the legs. So you're going to come to this layer that we created and also select the hands in this case. So you can zoom in and make a better selection. So use a small brush or selection tool. You can use the bracket keys as usual, and you can as well come back to the brightness and contrast and take out the contrast and brighten a little bit more. So right now we have just brightened up these areas, but this is not all. So next that we want to do, we are going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E on the keyboard. Create a stamp visible layer, and this time around we just want to work on the skin colors or create even skin tones. So we're going to come to select and come to select subject, so that Photoshop can automatically select the subject for us. And after the subject has been selected, next we just want to come and create or make an empty layer by coming to the new layer icon to create a new empty layer. Change its blend mode from normal to color, and after doing that, just come to the brushes, right click and get the normal brush tool, and make sure the hardness is set to 0%. The mode is set to normal, opacity in the flat 100%. And this time around, we just want to sample a color on the skin that we want the rest of the skin to look like. So for this case, I'm just going to sample a color from the first area. So hold down the Option key on the keyboard for Mac. For Windows, this is the alternate key on the keyboard, and left click to sample a given color that you want the rest of the skin to look like. Option and left click, and you can see it is going to sample that color. And as soon as that color has been sampled, when you're still selected on the empty layer, what is left, you just want to paint on the skin. So you left click and paint on the skin, and in this way it is going to be working on the skin and creating that kind of evenness on the skin of our subject. So I'm just going to paint just like that. Don't mind if at all you make a mistake during the painting process, because you can always come and correct that mistake later on. But the reason as to why we created or we made the selection is because as we are painting on some edges, or as we are painting on some of the edges of our image, we don't want to paint out of the image. I hope you understand what I'm trying to mean. So for these edges, for example, on the hand, we don't want the color to spill over to the edges of our subject. So I'm just going to paint quickly just like that, and you can see as you're doing this, you can see the skin tones are kind of looking better and even than they were initially before. So you can see When I come to the legs and start painting, just see how nice and even the skin has gotten to be or to look in this case. So I'll just come and paint better or faster, because I don't want the tutorial to be a long one, because the attention span for some people is not too much. So I'm just going to paint. So you can see we have painted on every area that contains skin tones, and the skin is now looking even. So let's first of all correct the areas that we may have accidentally painted. So just come and get the eraser tool, or you can press E on the keyboard and make sure the mode is set to brush and hardness is set to 0, opacity in the flat 100%. And with the eraser tool selected and this empty layer still selected, you're going to press Ctrl D or Command D on the keyboard to deselect the selection that we had initially for our subject. And with the eraser tool, we can now come and erase or paint away those extra areas that we may have accidentally painted. For example, the nails in this case. You can even paint away from the makeup if at all you had accidentally painted on the makeup of our subject. So I'm just going to get the brush once again and paint on this area because it wasn't painted, and reduce on the size, and also paint on this other side of her eye, just like that. So get the eraser tool once again and eliminate it from her eyes and this earring. So always take your time as you're doing this, because good images take time. So I'm just going to come to the lower part of the body and erase it from this area of the shoe. Get the brush once again by pressing B on the keyboard. So with the brush tool selected, I'll just come and paint back the areas that I may have accidentally missed out. So you can see good images take time, and you don't have to create any shortcuts for creating a good image when it comes to Photoshop. So right now we are done correcting the image, all those areas. So you can always come to the opacity and reduce the opacity to your liking, so that the effect can even look better. So I'm just going to take down the opacity so that the effect doesn't look artificial. So I'm just going to leave it around 64. So before, after, before, after. The skin is now looking nice and even. So next we just want to work on the skin and create that nice of glam or better tones. So just come and create a curves adjustment layer. So I'm just going to undo, come and create a curves adjustment layer, and with that done, take this towards the right hand side until when the highlights are popping in the image on the skin. That's what I mean. Double click to open up the layer style dialog box, and come to underlying layer, take the effect away from affecting the shadows, and stop at the point whereby only the highlights are just being affected, and hold down the option key on the keyboard or the alternate key on the keyboard and split this so that the effect can blend better into the image. Click OK, select the white layer mask and press Ctrl I to invert the effect, and come to the brushes, get the normal brush tool, make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches, and zoom in. And to have black and white, simply left click on the tiny boxes to reset. And after doing that, we're just going to come and only paint on the brightest areas that we want to pop even more. So I'm just going to paint on the brightest areas that I want to have this nice and beautiful glow on the subject's skin. So you can see before, after, before, after. It is not too much, but it creates a difference to the image. Before, after, before, after. So you can always come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity if at all the effect is too much. So right now I feel like we have more reds within the skin tone. So we're going to come and create a color balance adjustment layer, and you can come to the midtones and simply add a tiny bit of greens to our midtones, just like that, and can as well cool down or add some blues to the midtones to make the image even better. So we're going to come and create a selective color adjustment layer, and simply come to the blacks and simply come to the cyans and just take the cyan slider higher to create that kind of cinematic blacks to the image. So this is what we have been able to achieve so far. So next we are simply going to come and make the image pop. So just come and create a levels adjustment layer. So when that is done, hold down the option key on the keyboard and drag this up to when you feel like you are getting the red color for the blacks, and just come and take this higher and stop at the point whereby you're getting that red color also in the blacks. You can see before after, but this is too much, so always come to the opacity and reduce it to your liking. So before after, it is just subtle, but it is enough. So right now we just want to work on the background. So in order to work on the background, we're simply going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer. And when that is created, simply come to select and simply come to subject to select the subject. And when the subject is selected, we just want to invert the selection. So just come and select the quick selection tool and simply right click and come to select inverse to select the background instead. Come and get our spot healing brush tool and start painting on these areas or these lines in the background to try to eliminate those lines in the background. So you can see we are trying to clean up the background and get a better looking image. So I hope you can see this. So in order to make it even smoother or seamless, come and get the mixer brush tool. So with the original settings, make sure clean brush is selected once again. So just want to come and start blending this line just like that. And as we're blending it, make sure that you are not painting close to our subject in this case. So just paint in the opposite direction of that line, and it's going to erase that line from. So you can now zoom in and look for all those areas that have those lines or that in the background. So this is the technique you can even use for your paper backdrops to create a seamless background or backdrop for your clients. So this is what we have been able to achieve so far. So right now we just want to make the background even whiter or to make it look white. So in order to make the background white, I'm just going to press Ctrl D, or you can use Command D on the keyboard to deselect the selection. So just come and create a selective color adjustment layer once again. Come and target the whites, and you can see that the background has some yellows in the white. So just come to the yellows and you can play around with this slider, and by just doing that you can see the magic that we have been able to create. So just you can either take this to 5 at all you wish to your liking, but remember it is also affecting haircut. So in this case, what we want to do, we are just going to come to the brushes and get the normal brush tool and make sure black is the top color in this case, and black is going to erase the effect from her skirt. So I'm just going to use or paint using a black brush. By only painting on her skirt just like that, reveal or bring back the original color of her skirt, so that the rest of the areas like the background and her shirt are almost pure white to your liking. So I'm just going to paint on the skirt, and by just doing that you can see what we have been able to achieve in this case. So when you feel like the skin tones are a little bit oversaturated or too much, always come to the hue and saturation rather, and target the reds and come the lightness and take the lightness down to your liking. And you can as well come and add a little bit of brightness to your image just like that, around 4. So let me show you a quick before and after for this very image before you can go ahead to save it. So this is the image before, after, before, after, before, after. You can see what we have been able to achieve. So you can as well do a little bit of eye whitening if at all you wish to. So to whiten the eyes, we're just going to create another hue and saturation adjustment layer and take the saturation down to around -76. Press Ctrl I on the keyboard, or you can use Command I on the keyboard. With the brush tool selected, white as the foreground color, you're now going to zoom into the eyes. So you can do the same technique for eyes and teeth. So reduce on the size and simply paint in the eyes to whiten the eyes of our subject in this case. Command minus to zoom out. And this is what we've been able to achieve. So in order to save the image, simply come to image, export, come to export as, and it's going to open up the export as dialog box right there. Make sure the format is set to JPEG and quality set to the maximum. Resample set to bicubic sharper. And after doing that, make sure under color space, convert sRGB and also embed color profile have been checked in this case, and simply click on export and save the image in whatever location that you want. So this is how you can easily edit your studio images and make them better when it comes to Photoshop. And if at all you have enjoyed this, simply like this video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If at all you have been watching and you're not yet subscribed to this channel, Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching and seeing more videos on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.